Hello audience. As much as I'd like to say that in this video we're going to get back to work on this car, or this one, but I'm not. Instead, I'm taking the engine out of the Classic again. Now some of you may remember this car. A few years ago I did a cheap low-budget overhaul on the engine, and it's been working pretty good ever since. A few months ago it's been clanking and knocking a little bit. Not too bad at first, and I kind of just ignored it because I didn't want to think about it. But lately it just kept getting louder to the point where I knew something was wrong with it and I had to do something about it. So in this video I'm going to show you what exactly I found and how I fixed it. The biggest problem is the timing chain set that I got quit working. Now the most obvious problem, there's supposed to be a plastic guide that goes here, goes all the way up to the cylinder head, and that's in pieces right now. I took the oil pan off and found more pieces of it. So pretty much the chain was going across here with no guide at all, and it was hitting this bolt. So as you can see, it's kind of rounded off here. So that explains the clanking sound. Also, the tensioner for the balance shaft chain, which goes there, it's supposed to have a ratcheting assembly on it so it doesn't leave the chain loose. And that came apart. And when I took the oil pan off, I found the pieces to it. So that has completely failed. Now this was all part of one big kit that I got for the timing chain and the balance shaft chain, which came with sprockets, bolts, the chains, and the tensioner. And that has completely failed. So every part that I put in this that was new, I'm going to have to replace. Well, there's no other way to put it. I bought a cheap timing chain set and it failed. Now if you're wondering what brand that was so you know what to avoid, I looked on Amazon and they're not selling it anymore, so I guess that's good. I've since bought a new set from Cloy's, I think it is. I bought this through AutoZone. I trust this more because they have good quality commercials on YouTube. Also, I was able to buy it locally, so it's easy to return if I have problems, and it has a lifetime warranty. And this is also a complete set for the timing chain and the balance shaft chain. This set also has a new water pump. The last time I put the engine together, I reused the old pump because it looked like there was nothing wrong with it, and it still looks like there's nothing wrong with it, but I got a new one anyway, so I'm going to install it. And now it's time to reassemble it. Now, installing the chains is a somewhat complicated process, but I've already covered it in a previous video, so I'm just going to do this. So I was just about to put the belt tensioner back on, because seemingly it looked like it was still good, nothing wrong with it. And then I discovered this. Now I have no idea how they get like this. That is really strange. But in any case, that's definitely due to be replaced. So I went and bought a brand new one. While I had the engine out this time, this was a good opportunity to replace the transaxle mounts. I replaced that one and that one way back there. Not the easiest to get to, but they're a lot easier with the engine out. Now on a car that's around 20 years old, if the mounts have never been replaced, I recommend doing that because they get old and they start to loosen up, and replacing them just really helps to restore that new car feel. This is something I did last time I assembled this engine, but forgot to tell you, is I figured out a trick on how to preload the oiling system. Now the oil pump is behind the timing cover and is driven by the crankshaft pulley, or damp, or whatever you want to call it. It's got these flat spots on it that go into the pump, and obviously this is driven by the crankshaft. Now the neat thing is, you can remove this and separate the oil pump drive from the rest of the engine. So what I did was take a steel tube and bent the end of it so it's kind of an oval shape. And put it inside the front of the engine, and it's kind of got the oil pump, and just spin it, the rotation of the engine, and this will fill the oiling system without turning the engine. Installing all these plugs may seem a bit tricky, but the good news is, at least on this car, all these plugs are different, so you can't install them wrong. One tricky thing about at least GM cars in this time is inside the wiring harness, there's a vacuum line that goes to the manifold, and this actually controls the climate controls inside the car. Yeah, even in the 2000s they're vacuum powered. And if you don't hook this up, none of that stuff will work, which confused me for a long time on other cars before I figured that out. This is kind of interesting. When I replaced the water pump, I noticed the original has a stud on it, and the new one doesn't. I think you can see it down there, it just has a bolt. I wondered what all that was about. Now, found out this wiring harness that goes down here that presumably goes to the vehicle speed sensor has a mounting bracket that attaches here, and it can't with just that bolt, so I'm gonna have to swap this out with the old one from the original water pump. And that's how it should be. I don't know if that's gonna void the warranty or not, but there wasn't really anything else I could do. Alright, it's back together now, ready to go. I skipped a lot of steps in this, reason being I was in a hurry and I covered a lot of this in previous videos already. So the next thing to do is fire it up and see what happens. I have good news. I fixed it. It works perfectly. It's a few days later and I've been driving it everywhere and I've had no problems with it at all. Now I did kind of overreact. I didn't have to take the engine that far apart or take it out of the car, but that was a good opportunity to examine everything. As I overhauled the engine when it was at 250,000 miles and it's currently at 282,000. So, even with the defective timing chain kit, I still got quite a bit of use out of it. Replacing the transmission mounts also made a huge difference. It did run kind of smooth before, but when you click it in drive or reverse, especially if it was cold, the whole car would shake a little bit, and it doesn't do any of that anymore. So, is it going to stay working now? I really don't know. I mean, I'm very confident that it will, but I was very confident last time, so that doesn't really prove anything. We'll just have to keep driving it and find out. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.